shoot. Pullback, step back three. Bottom!
The handoff. Jones for the tie. Oh, he's fouled! And one! He's still loose. Doherty the heave. Oh, my God!
Southern Utah is going to do something they've never done. Go to the NCAA tournament.
Happy Friday, everybody. It is another episode of the Straight Outta WAC podcast. We decided to wing it on this Friday. My co-host, Spencer McLaughlin, he has been a busy man. There's some realignment news that has come out yesterday with regard to the Pac-12, which, if you haven't checked it out, Spence is the host of the Locked On Ducks. It's Locked On Ducks, right? Podcast.
Locked On Ducks and Locked On Pac-12. Two separate shows that have had a little bit of crossover in terms of content selection recently due to the Colorado news. It's all been flying around, and there's only about 578 different angles to attack that sort of story.
Oh, goodness. And you know, that's on top of USC and UCLA leaving for the Big Ten. What is that, 2024, 25? Is that right?
Everything starts next year. Colorado will be back in the Big 12 next year. USC and UCLA will be in the Big 10 next year. Times be a-changin', Kyle. Times be a-changin'.
Good grief. Well, we'll get to the realignment stuff here to see if there's any thoughts on how it can impact downline from the Power 5, conferences. But a couple weeks ago, it came out, the WAC had voted on limiting the number of non-Division I games that teams could schedule on their, put on their non-conference schedule. It's down, I believe it was 3 at the maximum. I think it's down to 2. It's down to 2 now. I really like it. I'm not going to lie. I think that if we could get rid of all non-D1 games, that would be perfect. I know non-Division I schools don't like to hear that, but those games don't serve a purpose for anybody.
Yeah,
right?
so
it's not. It's you get a home game, but still, it doesn't help you or hurt you.
You and I agree on this wholeheartedly, because here's the thing with a college basketball non-Division I game. Yeah, you have a home game, but it is a matchup that a lot of students or alumni or fans or parents, is it a game that they want to see? Only the parents of the kids who are going to play for, the only time all season, right? That's going to be their chance. That's the only upside that's there. And look, for me as a play-by-play guy in the WAC, if people don't know, I do play-by-play for Southern Utah. I don't love those games because they're not as exciting of a product, but they're also not benefiting your school. I think the people they benefit the most, I think you could argue, are the coaches, because it goes on their win total, and then at the end of however many years, when you look back and say, oh, my record as a coach, if you were interviewing somewhere else, like if you were Mark Madsen just went from Utah Valley to Cal.
You're a Pac-12 guy too. You should.
I know. It left my head for a fleeting moment. I've been too ensconced in realignment and football, and mostly realignment. So anyway, Mark Madsen, who is off to a good start at Cal, by the way, if people did not know, is bringing in real talent, and they could be a solid team in the Pac-12 this year. But Mark Madsen at Utah Valley, when he goes to interview there, or when he's trying to get on their radar, there are elements that are far more impactful, which is why I think you could easily sell coaches on not having those non-Division I games. But at the end of the day, it does very marginally, but it helps your win percentage. It can be the difference between you. Think about this. It could be the difference between you putting together a 20-win season and not putting together a 20-win season. And is that not something that SIDs and athletic directors and alumni, they love to say, 3 straight 20-win seasons or 5 straight 20-win seasons. 2 of them were 21-12 seasons, and they had 3 wins against non-D1s in there. That might change if you shift the schedule around in a different light. But the flip side of the coin is you're missing out on an opportunity for your program to play a better team that can raise your profile. So it might be better in some instances in a small window for coaches, but I don't think it's on the whole better for the program or for the coach, even if you're looking at it from that angle. And this is just my viewpoint on it, because what's more valuable? Trouncing a Division III or NAIA school by 50 points and setting a bunch of individual and team records in the game that everyone looks at and goes, well, you were playing, so-and-so, so what is that really worth? Or is it going out and playing a school from, if you're in the WAC, the Mountain West, Conference USA, the Big Sky, the Pac, like whatever league you want, the Big West, like what is more valuable to you? 3 wins against non-Division I schools or the opportunity to pick up 1 win against a school from a legitimate conference? And to me, the answer is the latter every single time. And I think it's better for fans. It's better for me as a broadcaster. And I think it's better for the programs as well.
Yeah, so one thing that people don't realize is those non-D1 games, they don't count in your net. Like, they don't. Like, so if you have a team, let's put 2 teams on the bubble, right, that are right there, similar net rankings, but the one school hasn't played any non-D1, so it actually shows 25 wins compared to 21 for the other. They're going to take that school that hasn't played any non-D1s. That's just the way it is. Like, they don't count in your net, so they don't hurt you. I mean, they don't benefit you in a way. Sure, in the win column, it gets that winning percentage, but if you win, they don't count towards your net. They don't help you in the possible LR. Not that the WAC's going to be there right now, but
right,
they don't help you. Like, let's take a Sam Houston last year and a Utah Valley. They both played 3 non-D1s. So that hurt them if they were ever going to be in that at-large discussion. So I think
for the NCAA tournament, by the way, just to be clear, because we were talking about that last season, you and I discussed it on my radio show at the time frequently. It was, hey, could this be a 2-bid league? Could you have Utah Valley and Sam Houston if one wins this and one wins that, or could you have the tournament champion and one of the it was a conversation, but the non-D1 games count against you. Yep. So we've now established that it's not great for the fans and broadcasters as well. It's not great for the program, and it's not great for the conference either. Well, 3 strikes, you're out.
Speaking of that, with regard to the seeding system, if you play, GCU just put out their non-conference schedule yesterday. They don't have any non-D1s on their schedule. They have one as an exhibition game, but the rest are Division I games. Sure, they leave Phoenix one time in their non-conference schedule to play at Liberty. I'm still not sure on the date. That they're waiting for Liberty to release that because it's their home game. But, like, if Utah Valley has 2 non-D1 games on their schedule because they wanted to get a home game, that hurts them in this WAC resume seeding because now GCU has more opportunities to get points than Utah Valley does. And we saw how close it was in the WAC resume seeding system on the men's side last year between Sam Houston and Utah Valley. So 1 extra non-D1 game could be the difference between a 1 and 2 seed. And we'll talk about that in just a minute, how that's going to play out and how important it is to be in the mix for a 1 or 2 seed this year. But I like that they're going away from it. I like that it was voted on, that they're going away from it. They understand that they're not of any value to any teams. And I think it was
and real quick, Kyle, they're not even of tremendous value to the non-D1 programs. Like, you're going in there to get your teeth kicked in, but this is not like football. So football, when an FCS program, like all the ones in the WAC, go play a Power 5, it's because there is a paycheck that goes along with it. Yep. And that money significantly helps fund anything and everything within the athletic department. Kent State, for instance, is a great example. Did you know that Kent State football last year brought in over $2 million for their athletic department in 3 football games? They went to play Washington, Georgia, and Oklahoma. They got housed in all of them. But guess what? They brought in over $2 million combined in those games. And for a G5 or a non-Power 5 or low to mid-major conference, that's a lot of money. That does a lot for your athletic department. But these games with the non-D1s, they're not walking home with a fat paycheck. They're just getting enough to cover their travel expenses maybe. And a touch more. Like, it's not... If you take these games away, the financial realities of the non-D1 schools' athletic departments, they don't change. Whereas if you removed bye games from college football, suddenly FCS schools, you can have a lot of them really strapped for cash really quickly.
Right. And there's such a justification here, too, when you talk about they're getting their travel paid for. This is where the justification to play in-state games comes in, where Utah Valley should be playing BYU, Utah, Weber State, Utah State, Southern Utah should, Utah Tech should. All of the in-state schools should be playing each other, but this is a whole nother discussion for another podcast episode. That's where the net comes in with the fact that a school like Utah or Utah State can schedule a bunch of cupcakes to come to Logan because they're going to have more quad one opportunities throughout their conference season. So they don't want to play teams that might actually have a chance at beating them like we've seen in the past. So scheduling this whole putting it together and having to avoid non-D1s, that is a topic that we could go on for days about, right, Spencer? Like
it is, my biggest beef with college sports, football in particular, because I think basketball does a lot of things right. Though certainly not everything, but a lot of things right. My biggest beef with college football, everyone says it's realignment might be now, but it's, NIL is the biggest problem, or the portal, or this or that, or we need. And I'm like, scheduling is the biggest problem in college football. A lot of things come back to scheduling. Not everyone can make the playoff. That's because you're setting your schedules 8 years in advance. What are you doing? You are banking on what exactly? A school being good 7-8 years from now? You have no idea where they're going to be. You can't even guarantee to me right now Alabama will be good in 10 years. You know how I know that? Because 10 years before Alabama started their dynasty, they weren't doing a whole heck of a lot compared to what they do now. You can't know anything, and scheduling in advance rather than on an annual basis like college basketball does. The National College Basketball broadcast schedule, Kyle, is tremendous every single year. You get ranked matchups. You get these invitationals where you have a bunch of great teams, where you have intriguing matchups, where you have opportunities to bolster your resume, to make a statement. They do it every single year. The conference challenges, Big 12 SEC or Big 10 ACC challenge, all that stuff is fantastic. They do it every year, and they do a really, really good job, and I wish college football would adopt that a little bit more.
Yeah, and they kind of do it, but they kind of don't. You get some of these neutral site early games instead of being on campus. I think Iman Brennan wrote something about how college basketball needs to get back to having on-campus games instead of having all these big matchups on neutral sites. Like, give the students what they want. Like, reward the students for attendance.
So in college football, again, I agree, but you have so many more games in basketball. I understand the neutral site appeal because there are going to be a lot of games in those arenas throughout the course of the season. Playing a couple, elsewhere in the Bahamas or Hawaii or anything like that, the downside is definitely you don't get these big time crowds the way that you would perhaps like. Sometimes you can. Like I remember, I think Gonzaga was playing. I think it was Duke. Might have been Duke or North Carolina in a non-conference in Vegas a couple of years ago, and it was like a top 5 matchup, and it was in Las Vegas, right? Not close or not right next to either. It was packed. Yeah. It was absolutely packed. You can get that every now and then, but most of them are, kind of middling environments, and crowds are what make the games really, really, really special and awesome in that sense. But I'm a little bit more okay with it because you can have some cool spectacles like playing on an aircraft carrier. Last year it was Gonzaga, Michigan State on an aircraft carrier. That was awesome. Yeah. That was awesome.
See, I can handle that, but I mean, like, I think it was Iman Brennan wrote it after North Carolina and Kansas have agreed to a home and home, like one in Lawrence and one in the Dean Dome.
Yeah.
And
I like that.
I'm not staying doing all the games there. You're still going to have your MTEs. You're still going to have some of the Champions Class. But, like, get some of those games as a home and home. Like, that would be awesome to see at some point to get kind of back to, like, Indiana, Kentucky. I don't think they've played since 2012, if I remember right. And they used to play every year. So
Indiana and Kentucky haven't played since 2012?
Yeah.
What are we doing? Yeah, that's
beat in the Freedom Hall up there in Bloomington.
Oh yeah, see, that's ridiculous. That's utterly ridiculous.
Right. So
come
that's
on.
What we're saying. Like that's why BYU's not going to schedule Utah Valley for a little while because Utah Valley's beat them on back-to-back years, and now that they're in the Big 12, they know that they can't afford to lose to Utah Valley because it's going to hurt.
Which is why, and this is how it's similar to college football. Schools having the power to set their schedule is what is wrong here.
Yep.
That is the problem. You know what always works out to have great matchups? whether schools like it or not, conference play. Because you know who's in charge of those? Not the schools. But the schools in football and basketball get to have control over their non-conference slates, so they're just going to set it up in the most advantageous way for them possible, which sometimes gives us really good matchups and games, but does not maximize the amount of quality matchups that are going to be high interest on television that you could possibly have. It is a flaw in college sports. I don't know if we'll ever get that, but if Roger Goodell came down and was put in charge, he would make a few changes.
Well, and it all comes down to money, too, if you have money. And I'm going to throw out 2 WAC teams as an example, GCU and California Baptist. Looking at GCU's non-conference schedule, I mentioned this already. They leave Phoenix, not just the state of Arizona, just Phoenix, one time in their non-conference slate to go to Liberty to play a ball game. Is that
because they play Arizona State as their other one, right?
No, they don't. I don't think they play Arizona State this year, but every game is either at GCU Arena or it's at the Footprint Center right there in downtown Phoenix for their MTE. So outside of the Liberty game, they play one game outside of Phoenix because they can buy all those home games. They have the money to do it. Plus, people want to come to Phoenix and come to GCU they want to experience that atmosphere. CBU is kind of similar from what I've seen with their schedule. They may leave Riverside, California one time this year. One time, because they host an MTE this year. Their lone game, from what we've seen already announced, they're going to Oregon to play the Ducks. That's it. So, other teams
GCU is going to go play the Ducks?
No, CBU is playing the Ducks. Sorry.
Oh, CBU is playing the Ducks. Okay.
So, between CBU and GCU, they leave their hometowns twice out of all of their non-conference games.
That's the epitome of my argument, Kyle, which is
right.
Individual schools having the power to rig it in their own best interests is not in the best interests of the sport writ large.
Yep. Well, and here's the other thing, Spencer, and we're going to start talking about this resume seeding system again. If either one of those 2 teams loses at home, we saw what it did in the first year of this resume seeding system. They will get hammered, like hammered, because they're not quad 1 or quad 2 opportunities at home. So if you're going to schedule all those home games, you better win every single one of them. So we'll see what happens. But talking about this resume seeding system,
By the way, real quick, did you eat a caramel apple pop earlier? Is that why your tongue is green?
No, I had the Tootsie Roll, fruity, whatever they are.
I don't know what those are. But the first thing I think of is always those caramel apple pops.
Green, fruity Tootsie Rolls. What are they called?
I figured it was something sugary and candy related. Anyway, we can get back to basketball, but I've just been wondering that for the last 5 minutes.
I got to show you this. Look at this.
Okay, let's see
Green Tootsie Roll fruit chews. Do you see this? It's not in. There it is. Maybe.
Almost. Maybe. Possibly.
There
it
you
is.
go.
Wow, I've never seen those. I didn't know Tootsie made fruit chews.
Oh, yeah. They're awesome. Anyway,
I've only ever had the caramely chocolatey Tootsie Rolls, which are delightful.
My tongue's green. That's kind of annoying. Anyways, guys, back to the resume seeding system. So the WAC is going to implement it again, year 2. Last year, it was very interesting because the regular season champions were not the 1 seeds at the WAC tournament due to the resume seeding system. SFA women had a big time gap between them and Southern Utah. And then on the men's side, I think it was Southern Utah had like a half a point edge over Utah Valley. It was
coming down to the last day of the regular season.
Right. And so it all played out. Neither one of the top 2 seeds on the men's side got to the championship game. Southern Utah obviously won the women's tournament. They're going to do it again. We have 11 teams, which means every team is playing each other twice. So it's very interesting that they're keeping this in place. I had Drew Spera on last week on a podcast episode. He talked about why they're going to keep it on because the NCAA tournament committee likes the system that they have set up. So, and another announcement that they're going back to a ladder bracket. 8 teams are going to WAC Vegas. So the top 2 seeds will get a double bye into the WAC semifinals. Big news there. Spence, what do you make of the seeding system, the bracket, and the importance of, well, let's put it this way, winning home games, guys? Like any home game that you have to win.
Seeding system, not the biggest fan. Definitely understand the thinking behind it. But thus far, the intention was to get schools to schedule quality non-conference opponents. But if that was, really working, why would we have to make a rule about, hey, you can't have as many non-D1s on your schedule, by the way? If it was so incentivizing, then they wouldn't have needed to do that, I don't think. I mean, it's covering all your bases, I guess, but I think that what should matter the most is conference play. And, it may be in the league's best interests to have schools want to go and play quality G5, mid-major, low-major, Power 5 games, pick up those wins to try to become a two-bid league, right? That's what the conference is, I think, fundamentally trying to do with the resume seeding system, and it should be given time to be fair and, play the other side of my own argument here. It should be given time to see if that ends up working and whether or not in, the next couple of years, a school puts together a schedule and are able to have the sort of season that allow them to get an at-large, and then they are not also the tournament champions, and then they get into the tournament and the WAC is a two-bid league, because that's, I think, where you have to be striving as a basketball conference. So I understand that, but I really do get the frustrations that people have with it as well, because it can be so weird. It's like, well, wait, we played this team, but we moved down, or we beat that team in the regular season, but we're behind them. We have a better record than them, but we're behind them. And I don't love that. I really don't love that. I don't know if there's a way to thread the needle and, incentivize good non-conference and also have, conference games matter above all else. Maybe add more weight to them than the non-conference games and not make it all the same. I'm not sure how all that could work out, but I don't love that your conference games are not the most important thing when you are in a one-bid league like the WAC. That is the way that I think it should be, and that's not the way that it is with the seeding system. Now, on the 8 teams going to WAC Vegas instead of 11, fully support. I'm fully on board with this. I am the sort of guy who opposes a 12-team college football playoff. I'm the kind of guy who wants to shrink the NBA playoffs. I'm the guy who doesn't want to expand the NFL playoffs like they did. Because what makes sports great is when you have urgency, when you have a pressure on every game and it matters, and when you are all going to make it to WAC Vegas, I think you remove an element of drama from the regular season and, storylines to follow and such for broadcasters like myself to kind of paint that narrative. And I think it's really easy for fans to see that. But I also think that for teams that are, having down years, like New Mexico State a year ago, of course, they weren't able to finish their season, unfortunately. But let's say they had. Did we need to see them play in WAC Vegas? I know it's March and anything could happen, but also not anything can always happen. But it comes down to what's your priority. Would you rather care about postseason tournament or the regular season? I think your prioritization of the regular season makes it more exciting for fans. And again, for broadcasters like myself, which is certainly part of my thinking here, but I also try to look at it from the fan standpoint as well. And I don't think you are taking away enough from the conference tournament, which is the possibility of a 10 seed making a run to the semifinals or something like that. Because if a 7, 8, or 6 seed makes a run, it's still going to be quite a big storyline, especially depending on who that team would be and who the top seeds in the conference are. Right. But you are not taking away enough from the conference tournament to where I would say, yeah, okay, you don't want to do this to bolster the regular season, because I think it's more intriguing to follow. You can set up dramatic games, postseason style games essentially in regular season matchups. It can depend on how the schedule breaks down and everything like that. I think it's more interesting. And by the way, other WAC sports do that, right? Volleyball, I think, soccer as well, softball. You don't all make it to the conference tournament, and I don't think that you all should, because reaching it, I think, should be somewhat of a goal or an accomplishment for a school, not just a given. I'm not in the participation trophy business, Kyle.
Yeah, the reward, yeah, definitely. I 100% agree. Now, just to be clear, everybody, so you're clear about this, you have to earn your way. You have to play your way into WAC Vegas. So the who goes to WAC Vegas is determined by your record in conference play. seeding then for that tournament is based off of the resume seeding system. I think we should all know that by now, but I think it gives so much more value right now to have 8 teams to where you have to play your way into the tournament. It gives so much more value to the regular season because of that. Because
Absolutely.
now every game means something. Like you can't just go and say, "Oh yeah, we lost one game. That's not going to hurt us because we're all going to WAC Vegas." Like you have to win every game or be in that conversation in the top 8 come March 9th.
And I don't like the idea of being able to just kind of coast at the end of the regular season or for large chunks of it and then turn it on come tournament. I don't like that. You know, the Miami Heat went to the NBA Finals this past year. I don't think that was good for the league because it sent a very clear message. What in the world does the regular season matter? If you can be an 8 seed and make a run, like why would I watch regular season NBA basketball if it's not going to matter until the playoffs? I don't want that to be the case in any sport. So I like that they have made this decision to say, okay, we're just going with the top 8. You have to earn your way in there. And in it's an 11-team conference now without Sam Houston, New Mexico State. I think that that's a reasonable bar to set. I think 6 would have been too selective. I think 8 is the right number. Allows for the matchups. You can still have Cinderella runs, but I think that it maximizes the regular season and still keeps the conference tournament competitive and interesting.
Absolutely. And every game will be at the Orleans Arena. There's no more games at Michelob Ultra. So it'll start Wednesday. I believe it's Wednesday, March. We're talking about it already. That's crazy. Wednesday, March 12th, because the last day of the regular season. Oh wait, that's not March 12th. I'm like
Bart Scott, the Jets linebacker, Kyle. Can't wait.
March 13th at the Orleans Arena is when it starts. Excuse me.
Can't wait.
Yeah. Everybody remember, hit the subscribe button to the YouTube channel or go to our Substack, whackhoopsnation.substack.com to subscribe to so you don't miss any content that we put out, but also subscribe to the YouTube channel so you don't miss out. Spencer, always appreciate the time. Enjoy talking about new Big 12, Pac-12 realignment issues, and stay busy, my friend.
Staying busy this time of year. Some people might think it's hard, but in today's world, it is not hard at all. Always great to be on with you, Kyle, and excited to continue to push closer towards college basketball being back. November can never come soon enough.
Absolutely, my friend. Everybody enjoy the rest of your weekend.
Thanks for listening to the Straight Outta WAC podcast. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and other podcasting platforms. Be sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode. Remember to follow us on Twitter at WAC Hoops Digest and Facebook under WAC Hoops Digest for all your WAC Hoops news and information.